What's good, friends list? Episode 28 of the Gamecast coming at you. With 2020, the year where all of our nerdy-ass dreams come true in gaming, now here, and more info on next-gen consoles and games dropping like any second now, there's one studio in the Xbox Game Studio family that is still kind of shrouded in mystery, The Initiative. So this week, we try to connect the dots like Charlie and It's Always Sunny to what the newest homebred Microsoft studio is up to, and try to pinpoint what exactly a quadruple A game looks like. Plus, we potentially have the statistical graphical power nailed down thanks to a certain AMD leaker for both the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5. So if you want to hear about those sexy ass teraflops, then you came to the right place. New year, same us, coming up on the Game Pass Gamecast.
Now the fun begins.
Rigid.
Stop! You violated the law.
Welcome back to another episode of the Game Pass Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox and Xbox Game Pass, including news, rumors, and conversations around them damn good video games. Because guess what? Video games are pretty fucking cool, man. New episodes of the show drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So be sure to subscribe to us wherever you get those and follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show and video games alike. Joining me today, it's only a duo action today. We got Mike P-Pack, the toy soldier. Mike, what's good? What's going on? And what have you been playing this past week?
Well, same. Usually for me, it's going pretty good. In this case, I'm flying out to go to Colorado tomorrow, so we're super good. Enjoying the last of my Christmas break from school in Colorado and getting some time off work, so that's always good. But
For sure.
as for me, what I've been playing, I've been having a healthy diet of Ninja Gaiden. I'm working on my speed run for that again. I am also playing a lot of Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition, getting better with my build orders and playing ranked 1v1s, just trying to get better every day that I play.
Your goatee.
My goatee. Might have been a bit ambitious goatee based on the votes or lack thereof, shall we say? However,
we'll talk about that after we do our intros and whatnot. But yeah, hey, it's at the end of the day, it's your goatee. It's what you think is game of the year, what defines game of the year to you. So guess what? As we always say, we love everyone who listens to the show, but fuck it, it's our show. We're gonna do whatever the fuck we want, talk about whatever the fuck we want, and talk about the games that we like. Because guess what? We like those games. Fuck you. You know what I mean?
Precisely, exactly.
So AoE 2, Ninja Gaiden Black speedruns. How have the Ninja Gaiden Black speedruns been going? Because you kind of now gotten back into, like you said, a healthy diet of that, more of a, kind of stayed on top of that more than previously, took a little bit of a break from that. And you've gotten back into streaming that as well, correct?
Yeah, I've been getting back into just streaming it a little bit because I like that versus just connecting it to my OBS and streaming it that way. I like that I'm able to watch my replays and film to see where I'm making mistakes. Another thing that I have been doing, working on my speedrun is I'm doing a lot of film study of the current world record, personal best of the best speedrunner. I've been working on watching film, trying to replicate what they do, including in certain fights, employing the strategies that they're using. And it's all a learning process. So I'm just working on all of that, but it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun just kind of getting back into it and spending a lot more time off stream, out of the speedrunning, just working on the simple things, trying to build up that, the fundamentals, if you will, of the speed run.
Yeah, oh, for sure. But it is nice to see you kind of getting back to that. I know that was your bread and butter on your stream for a while, so, I definitely enjoy those speedrunning streams that you do. I think it's, incredible, some of the stuff that is able to be performed with speedrun. I'm a big fan of speedruns, and especially this week with Awesome Games Done Quick going on, the productivity, actually, normally I'd say my productivity at work is down, but I'm one of those people that as soon as I get into work, I get all of my shit done as much as I can for the day, so that I'm like basically on call from like if my boss swings by my desk, hey, can you run and do this? Yeah, absolutely. But outside of that, it's like then sitting and waiting and like just watching like speed runs on that.
Right. So, it's like, what else are you gonna do?
Right, exactly. So love it, love to see it. But on my end, going good. I am so fucking close to the end of The Witcher 3. That's been my main game that I've been playing. Like I talked about last week, all of it's held up, if not gotten better. I'm so happy that I stuck with this game. I'm so happy that I did push through. And it's a game I know that we've kind of talked off air that, you're talking about, man, do I want to get into that? That seems like a game that I'd like. I totally agree. I totally think you should get into it. Adam and I have both said, yeah, it's something that we think you would like, especially being a fan of more of a traditional Elder Scrolls experience, I guess.
Yeah.
But and like I said when we were hanging out together last week, and this is I don't want to say I throw shade at Bethesda, because Bethesda's just producing a different and developing a different style of RPG at this point, and they're appealing to a more broader audience, and I can't necessarily blame them for that. But
right.
It feels like if Bethesda still wanted to invest in like what they used to be good at. It used to be, okay, yeah, they have these expansive worlds, but these worlds are filled with the best, like they had more depth with what was filled within those worlds from NPCs and story standpoints and whatnot, where I felt a lot of the, like, especially the transition from Oblivion to Skyrim, those storylines were much more lost and they didn't feel as impactful as they did in previous games, where I get that feeling now playing The Witcher, where yes, this is this beautiful sprawling world that you have, and it's really something special whenever you see it with, in 4K HDR. Like, it's really stunning, but it's really what is formed within those worlds that makes me, I want to see every nook and cranny of every character I meet instead of every like nook and cranny of what's going on in the world outside it. It's like the opposite of Breath of the Wild, kind of what I talked about. Like, I want to see every nook and cranny within Breath of the Wild's world, where this I want to meet every character within the Witcher's world, because they all have purpose and depth being there. So I definitely think that'd be a great game for you, especially on stream, but I can't recommend it enough. I was hoping to finish it. By the time I wrapped up with my time off from work for the holidays, but it just didn't work out that way. But I'm like, I think I've put in, it's over 40 hours right now into the main quest line, and that's kind of, especially at this point, I'm kind of just mainlining that just so I could wrap it up and put a bow on it, just because I'm gonna have, after at least this month, it's pretty laid back with work, so I'll have the time to kind of chill out on the weekends, but after that, it's gonna ramp back up again. So I want to kind of get it checked off and wrapped up on that. But outside of that, that's pretty much all we've been playing. Molly and I, my fiance, have been heading into, we're on season 3 of The Walking Dead, Telltale's version of The Walking Dead, I should say.
Oh, nice. Have you been enjoying that?
Love it. It's not as strong as the first 2 seasons, because you're dealing with the main protagonist of the first 2 seasons is in the third one as more of a support character from at least starting out. I don't know. We're on episode 4 now, I believe, out of 5. So we'll see how that kind of wraps up. And I know the final season, season 4, brings her back into the spotlight, but it's just being introduced to a whole new cast of characters and a new protagonist that you lead. It's still great, don't get me wrong. And many people have played this, I'm sure, at this point, but like, Clementine is such a strong character, and I've grown so attached to her after playing now almost three seasons.
Right.
It's hard to kind of lose grip and association of that game series with her and Lee's story, especially from the first season. So it's still great. Don't get me wrong. I'm still enjoying it. I want to see how it wraps up, and I definitely want to see how it leads into the final season and obviously play that. But outside of that, it's just been kind of those 2 things, just because Witcher has taken up so much of my time that it's one of those games you sit down, you don't want to play it for an hour. You want to play it for like 3 or 4 and get kind of engrossed in that world. So that's been my main kind of sticking point for a game. It's not one of those games you can juggle a couple different games at one time. So before we get into the main show, as always, got our housekeeping. It's our free game giveaway. And let me just tell you this right now. I would definitely hurry up in following us to make sure you hit this, because we may be pulling the trigger a little early here on this free game giveaway. I don't know for sure. I don't know. That's just what I've heard through the grapevine.
Uh-oh.
I would just fucking, make sure you're following us on Twitter, because if you like free games, and I would imagine you do, because unless you're a psychopath, you definitely do. Free games are fucking awesome. We're going to hook you up by giving away one brand new free game of your choice on any console too, not just Xbox. We're talking PC, PS4, Nintendo Switch. We love all here. We're not fuck the console war bullshit. Play what you want on wherever you want.
Yeah,
to one.
Whatever home you're on.
That's right. Exactly. So we're going to give that away to one lucky listener. And all you have to do is the following. Follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Retweet the pinned tweet on our profile. And make sure you're listening to the show to know if you've won. That's it. So once we hit our follower goal that we have up there, we'll pull a winner. Somebody's going to get squared away with a free game. And this is the year to do it. I mean, you're now... Okay, 2019, there were a lot of great games. Talked about them last week. Make sure you listen to that show last week to kind of catch up on that. We talked about a ton of fucking great games. But I'll be quite honest. 2020 is going to take a big dookie on that. Let's just run through it right now. And this is on all consoles too. Starting in March, right at, the ass crack of March. Well, hell, starting in January, Warcraft 3 Reforged. Really fucking hyped for that. But when we start into March, right smack dab at the beginning of March, Final Fantasy VII Remake. Then we go in. We got Doom Eternal right after that. Animal Crossing.
I know you're very high on Doom
Very
Eternal.
fucking high on that. I'm real hyped for that. And it sucks that it was bumped back, because now this just makes this spring even fucking worse with all the games that we got coming out. But I'm a big believer in take as long as you want to get the game out. I'd rather have a good polished game experience and not have people fucking crunching forever. So
exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, Doom Eternal then, Animal Crossing New Horizon coming out then. If that's for you, that's fucking awesome. Not to mention, fucking not like a month after that, not even, Cyberpunk 2077, one of the biggest games of this generation, anticipated games this generation coming out. Not long after that, we got fucking Marvel's Avengers, which is, I think, getting better and better with each showing it has. On top of that,
we'll see what that's intriguing because of the huge cult following that the movies have. I mean, I'm just interested to see what they do with the video game for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
It feels like a blank slate. Like they could do almost anything with it.
Crystal Dynamics doesn't fuck around, and they're one of the most underrated studios out there, under Square Enix especially. But got that, and then one of the most anticipated games really ever at this point. And I don't fucking care. We're an Xbox podcast, but I'm goddamn excited about it. Last of Us Part 2 at the end of May. Not to mention then all the unannounced shit that's going on right now. Breath of the Wild 2 possibly at the end of this year. Plus then we got fucking Xbox Series X, PlayStation 5 at the end of this year, Halo Infinite. I'm getting a fucking nerd boner as we're talking about it. Anyways, there's a ton of fucking free possibilities with this free game that we're giving away. So make sure you're following, because 2020 is the time to check it in. Like, who the hell knows what's going on in the world right now? We may just fucking wake up and be blown up tomorrow. So, I would definitely take advantage of this while we can. Get a fucking free game on us. Keep listening to our nerdy ass podcast, and we will hook you up. So, enough of this talk. Let's get into the show. We're getting some news here. Mike, we got 3 news articles. We're going to kind of go through them a little.
3!
Yeah, strike 3! Ah! People are like, what the fuck are they talking about? It's one of those inside things that literally like 4 people know.
Good old Little League baseball,
Yeah,
baby. That's all you need to know.
Exactly.
We just had an umpire that would ring people up, and instead of saying strike 3, he would just go 3!
And he'd like do it real exaggerated too. Like, it's like, whoa, okay, all right. But anyways, we got 3 news articles here. First, starting out here, supposedly not 100%, guaranteed go to the bank with this, but I feel very confident in these sources that have been given, especially coming out of Digital Foundry, which produces ridiculously great tech, like hardware spec content with gaming. So AMD leak reveals 12 teraflop target for Xbox Series X GPU, along with 9.2 for PS5. You know all about them teraflops. That's that big, sexy marketing, really tech side, like term that people throw around with gauging GPU and CPU combined power, I guess. I don't really fucking know. It's basically saying both of these systems really are going to kick ass, but Xbox Series X, in terms of its GPU like processing power, it's going to be 12 teraflops, so a little bit heavier. Good wrap up though by Sheriff Saeed over at VG 24/7. This does come from Digital Foundry, all this info, but really a great write up over on VG 24/7 that I picked up that translates a little bit better for this podcast, I think. So let's get into it. The makeup of the Navi GPU chip powering both the PS5 and Xbox Series X has supposedly leaked. According to data initially available on GitHub, a member of AMD's testing team has posted test results of unreleased GPUs believed to be linked to PS5 and Xbox Series X. The information featured 3D Mark results and some hints about the potential power of the GPU in each of the two upcoming consoles. Digital Foundry independently verified the data has not in fact been changed, meaning that this is our first, albeit unofficial, look at the two GPUs powering PS5 and Xbox Series X. According to the leak, the PS5's GPU, codenamed Oberyn, uses 36 computing units and runs at 2.0 gigahertz. This creates a 9.2 teraflop GPU, which AMD has been referring to initially as a Navi 10 Lite. The Xbox Series X GPU, on the other hand, codenamed Arden, is aiming for a more powerful 12 teraflop target. The available data doesn't give us too much of an insight into the Series X GPU compared to the PS5's, but it does confirm 56 compute units, though not the clock speed. Digital Foundry suspects the target is 12 teraflops, which would put the clock speed at around 1.7 gigahertz, and is in line with different reports from late last year. The site is basing this on GPU's shader count, 3,584 shaders, which would indicate a 12 teraflop target at the very least. Aiming for a lower teraflop target would require less shaders, which isn't likely. None of these specs have obviously yet been officially confirmed, but the PS5 leak reveals how baked in backwards compatibility support is in the GPU. The data reveals testing from 3 chip modes, Gen 0, Gen 1, and Gen 2. The idea is to replicate the power of the base PS4 and PS4 Pro in both Gen 0 and Gen 1, leaving fully unlocked Gen 2 to handle PS5 native games. So, after all that tech mumbo-jumbo terminology, and which I'm sure like 0.5% of people who listen to the show are probably like, oh yeah, makes sense, yeah, definitely. I know every single one of those terms. Like, I know a lot of what they're talking about, but not like when it gets into like certain like the shaders and shit like that with the GPUs. It's like, does it kick ass? Yes. There you go. Congrats.
Yeah,
So
I feel similarly to you, but all I can say is that all this teraflop talk has me not terafloppy, if you know what I'm saying.
Boner,
Went there.
He's got a hard wiener. So, with that being said, does the potential graphical power gap between the two consoles really mean anything outside of like a byline flex in an article? Like, exclusives are what obviously move units, as we've seen this past gen, but will this graphical difference be enough to move units if Microsoft would potentially stumble out of the gate again, like they did this gen with the Series X? What do you think, Mike?
So for us, I mean, we've basically, all 3 of us on this show have made it abundantly clear that Xbox's issue wasn't the hardware. Well, the Kinect was a little wonky, but like hardware wasn't. The
launch Xbox One wasn't like it. It was on par for the most part with PS4, but like still did lack behind PS4, especially with a lot of games post like 2014. Like I know The Witcher ran at 900p on PS4. And then like 720 on Xbox One, which is like asinine if you ask me personally, but like that, like something like that could happen, especially whenever you're launching a system at $100 plus, compared to your competition. But continue.
Yeah, so I think like we're gonna touch on this like later in the show, the next point I'm gonna make. Mm-hmm. But unless there were some type of blockbuster, like let's say The Elder Scrolls 6 is released, And right out of the gate, Bethesda comes out and says, yeah, if you want to enjoy Elder Scrolls 6, feel free to enjoy it on PC. But if you're a console gamer, the best place to play it is going to be on Xbox because their hardware's superior, or whatever the case may be. That would potentially push the meter a little bit on sales. Mm-hmm. But in all honesty, I think you're going to be in agreement with this, but I also don't want to assume, your opinion on the situation, but mm-hmm. I don't think when you're really splitting hairs when it comes to this anymore. Like when it comes to, what system's better, what's going to have better hardware. To me, it's really about the exclusives, which is something we're going to touch on later. Mm-hmm. And I think if Xbox wants to, make a ripple and do better this next gen, a great system's going to help, but you're going to need to have better exclusive games, and that's just the bottom line about it.
Oh, 1000%. I totally agree. I mean, it's like I said, exclusives are what sell these consoles, and yeah, it's like if I had XPC and you had the same PC, but like I have a 1060 in my PC right now for my graphics card. It's like if you had, and it's like, I think it's like the supercharged 6GB model. If you had the 4GB model, you barely see any difference. It's like, and granted, a 3 teraflop difference is much beefier than what I'm, I guess, making it out to be. But
yeah,
but it's not, at the end of the day, all of these games are going to run at quite a high fidelity and a much higher fidelity than the next generation, or than our current generation. Like, 12 teraflops is double of what is in my Xbox One X sitting in my entertainment center right now. Like, and Xbox One X kicks fucking ass. Like, it is no slouch and is for sure the best. It's the best quality in terms of performance that I've played on a home console system, period. But with that being said, though, I still find myself playing a lot of fucking games on PS4 because of their exclusives. Like, I'm playing a lot of all their exclusive games. I'm picking up because they're so fucking good, and it makes me want to play a PS4 because they have all the good exclusives. Now, I play all my third-party shit on my Xbox because it's the best, performance I can get on a console if I want to play, third-party games on a console instead of my PC or whatever. But, like, it doesn't matter. Like, exclusives move this shit and make you want to play on these consoles. Plus, especially, too, I'm now starting to trend more in the direction that you brought up before, Mike, that I for sure immediately thought, okay, there's no way either of these consoles go over $499. I think that's the max that people are going to pay, which I still majority of my thinking, I do believe, and I still stand by that. But at the same time, though, like, the difference that is on there is still pretty, like, it's pretty hefty between 9 and 12, that if it does come out at 600, I'm not going to be completely shocked now. Like, yeah, like, that's hefty, where PlayStation, again, could, now granted, Xbox can come out with their Lockhart, model at launch too, saying like, okay, well, that may be $600, but this is going to be $300 or $400, where the PS5, yeah, you may get a little bit better experience, but, at a tiny bit better, it'll be marginally, if like Lockhart's whatever it is, like 4 or 5 or 6 teraflops or whatever, yeah, you're going to get a little bit better experience, but it's $300 and you're going to be able to play all next gen games. Like, right. So it's, and
if I do recall correctly, I think in our predictions I said that it was going to be at least $600.
Yeah.
If we wanted to, and a 12 teraflop sounds pretty familiar too.
Yeah.
So if you just want to rewind and edit that in here now.
Okay. Yep. I'll make sure I do that.
I'll
get right on that.
But no, I'm just kidding. But no, seriously, I 100% agree with you. I think that the next gen is going to be such a jump that it's really not going to be the biggest difference in the world. But you're hardcore, like, sports fan, like simulation enthusiasts. They might see a huge difference in performance, and they might want to bump up to the Xbox because, the Madden looks better and NHL looks better or whatever. But like, and by and large, as of now, the PlayStation's really king with the RPGs and things of that nature. So unless Xbox has an answer for that, you're not going to be able to woo that crowd over just by having decent hardware, because you're still not going to have the games.
Yeah, right. 100%. No, I totally agree. It's going to be the Xbox at launch, the Xbox Series X. If these statistics are right for the tech, it's going to be that system that tech junkies buy, that are like, I want to have the best. A lot of PC gamers, if they want to play console, I'm sure are going to buy this. They're going to say, this is the best that's possible on a home console. That's what I want. So, like, I get it, but once again, as somebody who has always been a fan of Xbox, and, yeah, I slumped a little on them this gen because the games weren't there, but I've still enjoyed what Xbox has done, especially on their service side and their game streaming and game, on-demand service. Like, that is the future, and they're doing right by the gamer right now, because they're in second place right now. Hell, even third, looking at Nintendo, if you want to throw that in. But I want to see them carry that momentum into the next gen, and I don't want them to necessarily, yeah, that's great that you're saying we're not going to stumble out of the gate in terms of performance. We're going to be strong with our performance in terms of the tech we're offering. That's great. Don't completely lean into that. Don't forget what Sony did to win this past generation. It was having exclusive games. So if the games aren't there, people aren't going to be there.
Exactly.
So anyways, let's head into next news article here. And this was kind of all over the place this past week or so, if that, even couple days, with CES going on. But there were conflicting rumors, but I think it's gotten straightened out. This comes via Thurrott by Brad Sams. This is talking about the ports supposedly on the Xbox Series X. So yesterday, AMD made a lot of noise in the industry with its keynote at CES. Among the new processors and other hardware announcements, the company showed off a highlight video that appeared to show the backside of the new Xbox Series X. But there was a major problem. Someone at AMD purchased a render from TurboSquid, and it was not accurate to what is actually shipping with the next-gen console. AMD is building the CPU/GPU for the next-generation console, so when they show off the hardware, myself and many others assumed that it would be accurate. The problem is now that the internet is filled with information that is showcasing the next generation of Xbox Series X inaccurately. The ports in the render, while not too far from the truth, are not right. Let's set the record straight. Following the snafu, I was able to confirm with several insiders about the actual port on the current early iterations of the hardware. Keep in mind, these are not the final and are subject to change, but do come from multiple people familiar with the hardware. As it stands right now, the Series X features on the backside of the hardware 2 USB-A ports of the super speed variety, Ethernet, a single HDMI port, optical audio, and a power connection. There is also another port on the back that may be used for debugging, but there wasn't an agreement on the nature of its functionality. The image at the top of this post shows a basic outline of how those ports appear on the actual hardware. I'll make sure to link that, as always, in the description so you guys can see this. Also, on the back of the device are openings for air intake as well. All the ports are located on the lower half of the hardware. Keep in mind, there is also a USB-A port on the front of the console for now, it looks as though Microsoft is sticking with the older USB style port. So nothing super crazy with this one, because it's just kind of talking about the back of the Xbox Series X, but everyone's like frothing at the mouth to get next gen news. It's that time of the end of the generation, knowing that next gen consoles are right on the market. We've seen the Series X, at least the physical box of it. Like, people are ready. They want to get any news they can out of this, but nothing super crazy here. But it is worth noting, because it's basically confirming the power brick is gone, like officially gone. We don't have to worry about power bricks. It's looking like we're getting the same, outlet model that we had with with the Xbox One S and Xbox One X, going for just a standard outlet. You don't have to worry about that fucking power brick that was with the 360 and went with the VCR Xbox One. That shit sucks. Get it the hell out of here. Thank God it's gone. We don't need that anymore. Bye, Felicia. So hopefully, though, one thing I do want to say, with USB-C not being mentioned on, or not confirmed being not on this one, or at least, from what Brad has been told, and Thurrott is a very reputable site for this information, so I do trust Brad's output. He's talked about things that have been official in the past and have come true, so I do trust his sources. But USB-C not being on there, to me, isn't that big of a deal, because with the power that this box is supposedly pushing out, you're going to need more than USB-C for that power, at least in my opinion. A traditional outlet model is much better in my opinion, but as long as the controller at launch has USB-C connectivity, that's all I fucking care about.
Exactly.
So because that's literally what, like he said, everything's going now to Type-C, which is great, and I agree it should, but with the power this box is pushing out, there's no need for it needs a traditional way of powering the system. Like I just think anything else besides that is kind of crazy. As long as the controller has USB-C, that's the main USB-C connectivity I'm worried about. What about you?
Yeah, I think being someone who's traveled to LAN tournaments, and has had to rely on USB A connection, or USB A, like the micro USB connection, it's not very reliable. The cords break easily. Like, you could be playing in the middle of a tournament match, your cord works fine, you wiggle on it the wrong way, it breaks. Now you have an unstable connection, which is just garbage, or an unstable connection, which causes your controller to disconnect at random, which is garbage. You travel all that way and you just have such a shitty cord to rely on. I'm really hopeful, just like you. I don't so much care. The super speed regular USB ports going to be great. If you want to use like an external hard drive for additional storage or anything, that's where you're going to see that benefit. But the biggest thing for me is just getting away from the garbage micro USB. So if they do that with the controller cords and what the controller accepts, I'm perfectly I'll be fine with that. That's fine with me. But yeah, I mean, that's my biggest worry. Obviously it seems a little leaves a little bit to be desired with the only 2 USB ports, but this isn't a computer to the end of the day. And it might open up the possibility of you being able to hook up a hub to it, which would give you those extra ports that you're looking for. So all things considered, pretty much like what you would expect from a new generation console. Nothing blowing us out of the water yet, but again, it's not official till it's official, right? No matter how reliable the source is. And again, I trust this source in particular. I'm waiting to see exactly what comes, on release day before I, start getting, whether it's upset or excited or whatever. I just want to see it in, black and white and make sure that's the case.
Yeah, 100% agree. Couldn't agree more. So at the end of the day, it's nothing to necessarily concern yourself about. If this is a deciding factor between buying a PlayStation 5 and an Xbox One, you have some bigger issues at hand, personally. You know what I mean? If that's what you're splitting hairs on, you probably should just go to a fucking PC, Right. You're not gonna, if that's what you're picking from at the end of the day, fucking go play on the PC. That's totally fine, console gaming just probably isn't for you, because you're gonna be getting this stuff for the rest of eternity. So let's head into our last news article here, and this comes via Twinfinite by Tom Meyer, and we're talking about GDC Awards here. So, Death Stranding, Untitled Goose Game, and more nominated for GDC Awards Game of the Year. So, the nominees for the 20th Annual Game Developers Choice Awards have been revealed, with Death Stranding leading with 7 nominations. The Game Developers Choice Awards take place during the 2020 Game Developers Conference, GDC, if you aren't familiar with that, in San Francisco, while nominees and winners are selected by an invitation-only organization of leading developers across the video game industry. Death Stranding received the most nominations in Best Visual Art, Best Narrative, Best Technology, Innovation Award, Best Design, Best Audio, and Game of the Year. Control and Outer Wilds. The amount of people who have confused those two, astronomical. Control and Outer Wilds follow behind with 5 nominees each. The other nominees for Game of the Year include Control, Outer Wilds, Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, and Untitled Goose Game, which is also nominated for the Seamus McNally Grand Prize at the IGF Award, taking place in conjunction with the Game Developers Choice Awards. Honorable mentions went to Apex Legends, Disco Elysium, The Outer Worlds, and Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Check out the full list of categories and nominees from the GDC website. So, GDC in DICE kind of wrap up the award season for gaming. So are there any games on this list that you hope will win now that it is being judged by peers compared to media that, previously may not have won as many awards as one would hoped from the media, media center judges, I guess, where, it's almost like, in hockey where the Ted Lindsay Award is for MVP that's voted upon by peers, where, the Hart Trophy is voted on by the media. So it's like, to me, it kind of sticks out. Like, it's great to see Death Stranding get some nods, and I know this is, it's an Xbox Central show, but at the same time, this is coming to PC, and we have a PC market here. But it's something like Death Stranding where I see that getting a lot of nods because of all the technical feats and the design that went into this game that I think, many critics may miss out on, including myself, that you don't see until you look into some behind the scenes documents and you see what all has went into the development of this game, where it's being judged on more of that scale compared to, maybe what was received by audiences comparatively, and those who take the game at face value at times. So I'm glad to see that. I'm glad to see Control, Outer Wilds get that nomination. Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, even though it is getting the, media attention now, it's great to see that it is getting the attention also from its peers as well, that From Software deserves at all points. They may not be the games for me, but I respect what they're able to do with those. And also, too, my GOTY thrown in there, at least with an honorable mention, Star Wars, Jedi Fallen Order, also Apex thrown in there to help solidify how fucking badass Respawn Entertainment is, especially this generation. So, anything stick out to you, Mike?
I guess, like, you kind of covered exactly what I thought of when when I read the run of the show. You made a direct link to the Ted Lindsay, which is what I was going to do also. I feel like when other game developers, much like peers voting on a MVP, when, peers vote on a game, on games like this, it almost feels like more legitimate than, not that the media is not amazing or anything, but it almost feels like there's going to be a different flavor of games that, these people would open up to. And while I'm sure they all would agree that, like, Sekiro and Disco Elysium and those games are fantastic, Star Wars are fantastic games, it also gives nods to other games that might not have gotten that attention from the media, which is basically what you said. So I don't have very much to add to it, other than I do agree with you that I would say that peers voting on something definitely feels not more special, but it has a different ring to it than, the media voting on something. You know what I'm saying?
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and like I kind of alluded to before, it's the same as last week. People are still kind of coming back from vacation and shit like that. It's a slow news week for the most part. Yeah, CES is this week, but that's more consumer goods in general with electronics, that we're not seeing a ton of gaming info come out about it, at least relative to our audience. So, like, direct gaming shit is still it's a slow news week. So bringing up and talking about awards again, especially at this point in the year now, nothing really sticks out to me, but I thought it's at least good to bring it up and kind of highlight it, because GDC is really, the game developers conference end of it is always really important, especially with their choice awards on top of that too. It highlights games from a different perspective that we don't always see. And, we try to always highlight, at least I feel with the show, what does this look like from a development end? What does this look like from a developer's perspective? Comparative to just, oh, bad game, bad. No, it's like, okay, there's more to it than that. Why was this choice made in the game? Well, let's look at it from the developer's perspective or the designer's perspective or whoever, whenever, kind of piecing this game together. There may be a bigger reason that you may not see that the developer saw and thought that these two would connect, that just maybe didn't for the consumer, and that's acceptable, but there's at least some reasoning behind it. But yeah, it's good to at least, I think, kind of cover this, and kind of just circle around it one more time. But let's head into our big topic though. So when I was kind of piecing together the show for this week, I kind of was thinking, like I said, we're in 2020 now. We're balls deep into this like fucking nerdvana that we got going on here with all these fucking games coming out. It's like year of dreams yet again. You know, we said that with 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. Great game. They're a great year for games, but not as strong as the previous couple years in terms of massive hits. 2020 is going to fucking blow all that shit out of the water. I mean, we got, like I talked about during the game giveaway, we got Halo Infinite, we got Cyberpunk 2077, Last of Us, all these major games. And especially looking on the Microsoft end, it's really, this could potentially be the year of Xbox with a lot of things set up. But, you know, and we know a lot of official shit talking about here. We know what the box looks like, and we know more specifically what studios are doing, or at least have an inclination. But there's one studio that Microsoft has in their, you know, deck of cards in terms of their studios that has kind of been quietly working in the shadows here, and that's the Initiative. So if you're not familiar with the Initiative, let's do a quick recap. So the Initiative is an Xbox game studio developer. They're located in Santa Monica, California. The studio was first announced with all of the Microsoft acquisitions at Microsoft's E3 briefing in June of 2018. So not this past E3, the E3 before. So, but compared to the other studio announcements that were at the show for Microsoft, the Initiative is one that was founded from the ground up within Microsoft. This is a startup studio. They didn't acquire this one. You know, compared to the other studios like Ninja Theory, Playground Games, Undead Labs, Compulsion, those were all studio acquisitions. This is one that it was a studio they brought up from the ground and that they're building up internally. So
it seems like they went out and recruited some pretty big names too.
Yeah,
so
100%. And we'll kind of get to that, you know, throughout this conversation, I'm sure. But, you know, and what's more interesting about this, though, in my opinion, at least, about the Initiative, was the way that it's being built as this studio developing not AAA games, but quadruple A games, 4 A's, whenever it comes to exclusives for Microsoft's platform. And, you know, many journalists at this point have kind of compared it to Sony's SIE, Sony Interactive's worldwide studios, clearly, you know, highlighting Microsoft's commitment to combating Sony's onslaught of first-party exclusives, like we talked before, God of War, Marvel Spider-Man, Last of Us, you know, et cetera, et cetera. You know, outside of that, though, much about the studio is unknown, and especially what the hell they're working on. Matt Booty, head of Microsoft Studios, though, has stated, though, this year we're going to get more info specifically about the project that the studio's been working about, presumably either at, you know, the expected Xbox Series X press event that we're going to get to highlight the box a little more before E3, or at the latest, you would imagine, E3 itself. And, you know, that the project is actually in a playable state already. We truly know nothing about it. Outside of the studio itself and a small group of developers within Xbox Game Studios, the Coalition, who design director you were talking about before, Mike, on the project, Drew Murray, has confirmed, provided some technical help with the kind of initial skeleton of the game, I would say. It remains pretty shrouded in mystery for the most part. We don't know anything about it. So today I kind of want to tackle something that is twofold on this topic. First, I want to answer, first and foremost, what the hell a quadruple A game is to us in general. What's it look like? What's different compared to a triple A game?
Mm-hmm.
And with that being said, the second part, what, with that context around it, what kind of game would you like to see the Initiative do in this space that kind of helps Xbox gain its footing in the first party exclusive arms race again, you know? So kind of kicking it off at a base level, when you hear quadruple A game, Mike, what do you imagine when you, like, what do you think about? What do you imagine when you hear a quadruple A developed game?
I would think of something along the lines of just pretty much like without flaw, but not as like a storyline flaws or things of that nature. But I'm talking just like what the game, the nuts and bolts of the game, little to no glitches, little to no exploits,
extreme polish.
Extreme polish on the game. Extreme attention to detail, not letting any garbage fall through the cracks. Those are the type of experiences that, you know, when I hear quadruple A, that would come to mind first and foremost as far as quadruple A, because when you think of AAA, it might have held weight in previous years, probably around the 2011, 2012 area, comes to mind. Like, that's when it seemed like some of the AAA games, or at least the like the thought behind them, that's when it seemed like it still meant something. But it seems now, whether you enjoy indie games or not, it seems like the AAA name has kind of lost a little bit of luster, because we've seen plenty of AAA stinkers come out. We've seen plenty of AAA games that are just don't work or just terrible. So it's just, it feels like they're trying to kind of, show you that, like, yeah, while you can kind of think of AAA games in a negative light at times, these quadruple A games are not going to be anything like your AAA experience. So to me, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. It's like, yay, quadruple A, like, that's awesome. But at the same time, it's like, well, AAA isn't what it used to be. So, it's kind of like a win some, lose some type situation, in my opinion.
I mean, to me, I agree. Like, it's, like you said, it's impeccable polish for the most part. What it screams to me, AAA, like, at the surface, first thing I think of when it comes to AAA is blank check. Like, whatever resources it takes to get this game done and get it polished, get it perfect as perfect could be, or a blank check to get this game to masterpiece quality, I would say, that I think of whenever I hear quadruple A. And kind of building off of that, even whenever I'm trying to compare it to games and, if there are any, I guess, right now in the current landscape, like, when I think of quadruple A, I'm thinking of, maybe a God of War. I'm thinking of something that is so polished and so seamless with its presentation, that I kind of think, okay, that's the best quality we can get right now in gaming. This is, if there are hiccups, I fucking can't tell. If there are, whatever's, what it reminds me of? Have you ever seen, the pictures people will post, like, electrical engineers or, people who do a lot of, even, like, cable management, and you see, like, a desk or some kind of, like, router that's set up, like, a big, like, actual, like, industrial corporate, networking system where it looks so clean and clean and front facing. You can't tell anything on the front, but you turn it behind and it's so, like, meticulously wired together, and so, like, just the cable management is impeccable, that everything is so wired and down to a T that you would never see that from the front, but it's so, on the back end, is so just bananas, but at the same time it's, like, perfectly put together on the back. Like, that's what I think of when I think of AAA gaming.
Right.
So, or AAA, quadruple A gaming, when I think about that. So, what do you, like, are there any games in your mind that you think currently kind of hit that quality at this point? Like I said, I kind of think God of War, when I get to that. There's some other games that, maybe come to mind, like, see, I want to think every now and then when I think, like, when I was thinking about this earlier today, I thought about, well, maybe, like, a Hellblade comes to mind, because that game is so just, when you pick up that game and play it, it's so immersive and it's so graphically stunning. Like, that, to me, I look at that and I think this is the first kind of glimpse of a next gen that we can get in terms of its facial mocap, the expression that the NPCs and Senua is able to actually portray, along with the photogrammetry that's being implied within this game. Like, that to me is, like, it looks to be almost AAA or quadruple A quality. I wonder how many times I'm gonna fucking say AAA in this. What do you think when you hear that, in terms of, like, is there anything in this gaming landscape currently that you could think of that might even be in that, stratosphere of quadruple A? It's tough to think about, because it's so hard to quantify quadruple A without actually having, like, a Merriam-Webster definition of gaming of quadruple A games. You know what I mean?
I think of, since it's an Xbox show, I think of the budget and the team that's dedicated to creating Halo Infinite, and that game comes to mind as a quadruple A. As of currently, I'd have to say, I think, as crazy as it sounds, like, I don't think that there's something that I could point to as of right now and be like, oh yeah, that's definitely what they're talking about when they're talking about quadruple A experiences. But again, I don't like Cyberpunk could potentially wind up in that ballpark.
That's another one. I agree. Yeah.
The amount that they're spending on, not even just with like Keanu Reeves being involved and all of that. It's just like everything that's around the game feels larger than life. And I feel like a lot of companies and devs have kind of maybe not like sailed the ship on this generation, to put it in a way that would like explain like just basically bailing on it. But I do think that they're gearing up for the next generation to really bring those experiences. Because devs a lot of the times are kind of restricted to the hardware. They might have larger dreams than what the hardware can provide them. But it feels
100%.
like for the first time in a long time, it feels like the equipment that they're going to have at their disposal is going to be so good that they might actually be able to gear up for those larger than life experiences that they're wanting to provide us.
Oh, for sure. Like you saying Cyberpunk, I totally agree with that. And that, from what I've seen of the game, what gameplay, they released that like almost hour-long gameplay demo at last year's E3, and then this year they've released like, I think it's like an 18-minute deep dive or something like that. I didn't watch that one just because they even preface it saying, depending on what you define as spoilers, this could be spoilers, and you know me, I'm Mr. Don't fucking spoil anything for anyone, show less. Sometimes showing less tells more. So, I didn't want to watch that, but just from everything I've seen with this game, what's been told, they're really trying to blur that line of immersion, and I think that's another thing that kind of pops into mind when I think quad A gaming. It's the immersion level, and it doesn't have to be I'm not saying a VR level immersion, and not like maybe a physical immersion of you're putting on this headset, this peripheral that's quote unquote bringing you into the game. Not at that level, but more of a believability from a graphical level, from a polish level, from things that make you want to soak in that world. And that could even be, a Hollywood level narrative. This is, we could be talking about a Christopher Nolan-esque level script that's going into this, or writing that's being penned for this experience that we've never seen before. Seeing a next, and I'm a huge Christopher Nolan fan, which kind of brings me to saying this, but like his new movie that's coming out this summer, Tenet, really fucking excited for that. But we may be with Quad A gaming, we may be getting the next Tenet on a game console. That's what I think of when I hear Quad A gaming more and more, that it doesn't have to necessarily be, physically entering a game space through VR with immersion. It's believability with what's going on, being able to tell these real world stories in even these lands that are so far away that you never imagined, that we're no longer seeing it's just somebody, whoever's in the dev studio that took a creative writing class anymore, that we saw like back in the day whenever games necessarily weren't considered for their game story or their stories and their narratives. And that's no knock against anything like that. People just weren't phased at that point, or weren't really ready for that in gaming yet, where now we are. And now gaming's blowing the movie industry out of the water financially, and more people than ever are gaming. People are ready for those experiences. So to me, like, I think the Cyberpunk connection there is definitely, I mean, granted, we have yet to actually see the final product, but everything we've seen there and what's been presented, and everything that every, person who's had hands-on with this game has said, this is truly the first next-gen experience, or at least what feels to be next-gen experience. So when I think AAA or Quad A, if I say fucking AAA one more time, I'm gonna like karate chop myself in the nuts. like Kramer in the one episode of Seinfeld where he does karate. Like that's gonna be me to like my nads here if I keep doing that. But I totally agree. I think the Cyberpunk connection is definitely plausible and definitely something I could see with an immersion level. But so another thing I was thinking of too, and I'm curious to get your perspective on this, and I would, and Adam's too. You know, he couldn't make it this week on the show with some family obligations. I would definitely want to get his thoughts on this, maybe on next week's or just off the show. But with you being a PC gamer as well, do you think PC gaming has kind of spoiled this level of fidelity that we're talking about for console gamers? Like, now that more and more people are playing games on PC, and which is in turn pushing the console market to yet again push itself to its limits in terms of the graphical fidelity and just in the level of customization and whatnot with gaming, where people could even make an argument that they're getting a lot of quote unquote quad A gaming experiences in terms of at least the graphical fidelity with pumping a 2080 Ti into their system and being able to do 4K 60 like that now at this point. Do you think that level of fidelity being accessible for PC gamers has kind of spoiled, what this has been able to do for console gamers? Like, is this jump in generational fidelity going to impact people as much as a lot of people are thinking, I guess?
I think from just if you're talking about like a hardware, like purely hardware, purely experience point of view, then there's definitely an argument to be made that potentially like PC gamers have already been spoiled and that the experiences are going to be great, but they're not going to be that amazing compared to what they've already experienced. But I think that while the PC gamers have had superior technology, and they will continue to have superior technology even in the new generation, it's more to me the actual gameplay and like the story of the games. So yes, certain games being on PC only have been awesome, but the experience that you're talking about in particular, the quad A experience, if you will, I think that the game devs getting ready for this next generation and being able to get to more gamers via console, I think that the PC players are going to benefit also from this, because a lot of these games, especially the Xbox ones, I would, imagine are going to be like, if not release day, a little bit later be on PC also. So I think, yes, technology wise, they have been a little spoiled, but just gameplay wise in general, there are some things that, they're still lacking on, and everyone's lacking on until this next generation for sure. Yeah,
I agree. It's going to be interesting to see how people kind of tackle this and kind of handle and what their experiences are heading into the, like, I think this is going to be the closest console gamers will ever be, at least until there's no longer generational leaps in gaming. There's just, here's parts you can buy, like where consoles are basically modular at that point, and there's no more PS5, PS6, PS7, whatever, or Xbox
I think
One.
We're getting close to that too.
I mean, people have been predicting that for 2 generations now, where people were saying the one we're currently in, this is the last one, or hell, even before that, there were some even saying 360 PS3 is the last generation. Well, we see how that's panned out, where people are still excited and still want these generations, but we're so close. I think we're closer than we've ever been to basically console gaming turning into PC gaming, where it's becoming modular. So like, I think it's going to be interesting to see how in general the mass populace of gamers is going to respond to consoles. Or are we going to see the that divide between PC gaming and console gaming become closer and closer? It's really interesting, but I think this level of quad A gaming is, and how that is reflected both on console and PC, is really going to be, it's going to be interesting. It's definitely, these first couple years of the next console generation, the next generation of gaming, are going to be interesting, to say the least, I think. But so with that being said, and with kind of us talking about these immersive experiences and whatnot with quad A gaming, it seems like most big experiences anymore, these granular, top level, quote unquote, experiences that we get in gaming, they seem to need to be open world, or at least I get the feeling that many games feel this need to be open world, and these big, massive titles like your Assassin's Creed Odysseys, Origins, what have you, the Red Dead Redemption 2s, the Enter game here, The Witcher, even, hell, that we were just talking about, that we need these big, massive worlds to live in that we're just filling with random shit. Do you think Quad A gaming needs to be open world? Do you think this level of gaming, this new stratosphere of polish and shit, needs to be included in an open world? Or can, like, smaller experiences, like I said before, Hellblade, to me, that felt like possibly a Quad A game because of the fidelity and the immersion that it provided. Can that still fit this mold, heading into these quad level games, experiences that we get?
I'm just going to go back to my original point that, like, I don't think it's necessary for games to be open world. I think with a certain level of polish, attention to detail, I think any game, anything could really be a Quad A experience if it, fits the right checkboxes. And I think everyone is going to have a little bit of a different checkbox for that. Like, what does it mean to me to be Quad A? And with everyone's opinion, everyone's going to be thinking a little bit differently. But to me, and I'm sure a lot of other people too, it's just like, as long as the game works on release day, there's no game-breaking bugs, the servers work when you get online. I think a lot of different things to me would check a Quad A experience. But just on the original point, I don't necessarily think it's critical for a game to be open world to be Quad A. I don't believe so. No,
I totally don't agree. I feel like sometimes the open world, like, I don't want to call it like an illness, but like this like open world thought that like creeps in, I think is just so unnecessary at times. Like,
I agree.
Like
100%. It's just not necessary.
No. Okay. So how about this? For example, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. The game has legs for days, which is great because of its, parts of its open world on top of that, but it's also what is encompassed within that world that makes me want to keep coming back to it more so than its open world. Like, if that game was a fourth of its size and the fourth of its, like, scale, I guess you want to say, I would have finished that long before and probably would have been a little more satisfied with it. Because, like, I don't have to, granted, yeah, you can fast travel and this and that, but, like, one of my favorite things about a good open world is I don't want to fast travel. Marvel Spider-Man last year, or I guess now almost 2 years ago, I never fast traveled because it was pointless, because it was so much fun being in that world and swinging around town. It was fun. The mobility was fun. The world wasn't overtly big where it took me 20 minutes to cross the map. No, it took me a couple minutes because the travel was fun, but also too because it wasn't overtly big and it was confined, but still felt massive because of all the shit you were able to do in it. But it also was fun traversing across that. It wasn't overtly big. It had a feeling of linearity, but not in a sense of it ruined the exploration of that city that you're in, of Manhattan. So, like, to me, it just feels like sometimes it's almost like every game in the early 2000 or like late like 2000s, early 2010s, like forcing a multiplayer experience into everything. Like, that doesn't, it's fine if you put in something like, I'm trying to think, for example, like, I know a lot of people love Uncharted. I love Uncharted. A lot of people love Uncharted's multiplayer. I personally don't. Uncharted, you play Uncharted for that story experience. You don't play Uncharted for, the multiplayer. Where inversely, Halo, a first-person shooter, 90% of the people probably, I would say, what's your fondest memory about Halo? They're probably first and foremost going to say the multiplayer. It was playing Halo 2 multiplayer, Halo 3 multiplayer. It's now, MCC coming back from the dead. It's playing Halo 1 multiplayer on LAN with your buddies until, 5 in the morning. So, like, those experiences deserved it. Where, like, I feel like shoehorning stuff in just is so just poor taste. Like I think this quad A gaming can boot the open world in some capacity where it isn't just a tech demo. You're getting to see the polish and shit like this, but it can be in the level of a God of War where, yeah, there was this quote unquote open world, but it was like a linear open world where it felt everything there had purpose. And that's what I think quad A game is going to provide. Like we keep talking about this polish that comes into it where you could trim the fat, where it's like, are we just putting this in to put it in, or is there a purpose to this? Like, don't fucking waste people's time. Like, especially us, the people who, the main demographic, the 18 to 35 is who is playing these games, who is investing in gaming now. That is your main demographic anymore. Those are the people who are spending the most money on gaming because they have the money to go and do this shit. At the same time, these people are working. These people are having, college and shit like this where their gaming isn't, they only have a certain amount of expendable time to invest in gaming, a handful of hours during the night, during the week. And then, on the weekends, usually most people have a little more time, but like, it's still a limited amount of time. Don't waste their time. And I think quad A gaming is we're going to see more experiences that find that immersion level, that trim the fat. And if that means acts in an open world, I think that's perfectly plausible. So
almost preferred for me, but yeah.
100%. I'm right there with you. At the end of the day, don't waste people's time, and I think quad A gaming is going to do that. So, kind of building off that before we kind of jump into maybe what we think the initiative should do or what you would like to see, I'm gonna list some names associated with the initiative, and at least so far, what who is a part of this studio and what they've kind of previously worked on. So let's start here. Studio head, Daryl Gallagher. He was originally with Crystal Dynamics, heavily a part of the Tomb Raider reboot that tons of people loved. We got Tom Shepard. He was the technical director at Rockstar San Diego on Red Dead, Bully, I believe, Manhunt 2, GTA 4 and 5, I believe. We also got Eric Jackinson, senior artist, Santa Monica Studios, God of War. You hear these names and the projects they've been attached to. What comes to mind when you think of what kind of projects they could tackle? Like, what do you think of when you hear the previous experience, where they've worked before, what those studios are known for? What do you think combining all these people could, like, what would you think? You get these people in a room, and you give them, say, 2 hours to draw something or like give a proof of concept. What do you think that proof of concept leads to? What kind of experience do you think these people would be most preferred in?
Yeah, I mean, you look at their
resume,
if you will, and it definitely feels like they're gearing up to try to take some of the RPG fans away from PlayStation, which I'm here for. It definitely feels like they're trying to make something to combat against The Last of Us or Uncharted. It feels like they're definitely gearing up to make something super, super memorable and a great experience. And I think that's what they need, because I think they learned a lot from this last generation. And I think they realized that that's one of the things they were missing. So they went out and they got the biggest guns in the industry in these different sects. And each of them brings a different part to, a finished product. And I think that's what they're aiming to do. They're aiming to provide a finished product that's immaculate. And I would look to see like a really in-depth RPG. Doesn't necessarily have to be open world to be a quad A experience like we've talked about, but something super polished, story driven, just something great to try to put the heat on PlayStation right out of the gate with the new generation.
What do you think about what do you think tone wise? Do you think this is like, do you think, people like this, with these experiences, you got your God of Wars, you got your, Red Deads, your Grand Theft Autos, etc., Tomb Raider, and you see these titles kind of tossed around there in these franchises. You think kind of gritty, realistic, but then at the same time, you also have people like Drew Murray, who was a creative director at Insomniac Games on Sunset Overdrive, on Ratchet and Clank, like where it's more, you have these not slapsticky, but very tongue in cheek, like satire based and fun and like poppy experiences. You know, do you think that they're going to lean more into that gritty take that you see a lot of these grounded experiences that you see just being upfront, the Sony games, bring the bat every year, your God of Wars, your Days Gone, your Death Strandings. I mean, granted, Death Stranding's fucking out there, it's Kojima, but at the same time, it's still like gritty and it's still grounded in this world that Kojima built. It's still what he believes a grounded experience.
Yeah,
because I think what, and we'll kind of get into this when we cap it off with this last question after this, but what these guys tell me, at least looking at it from their track record for the experiences they've worked on and what their talents they bring, I see something like if they go in there and they provide a proof of concept, it's something that's going to want to, they're gonna take a pitch at the God of Wars. They're gonna take a pitch at, a Rockstar experience that is top level tier. And even now, I mean, granted, you think of, GTA 5 and you think of even Red Dead 2, they may be the, architecture of these games in terms of their control mechanics and how, some things are approached are still kind of antiquated. The writing and the world building really of these games has felt so ahead of its time. Like, that's the one thing, if anything, I give Red Dead Redemption 2 is it handles world building so immaculate and so perfect, in my opinion. It's at masterpiece level that I see that. I see world building, and I see something that's, they're going to go up there and throw a fucking heater with their first pitch to Aaron Judge. And the Aaron Judge being Sony's first party exclusives.
Right.
So, to kind of cap off this, discussion on the initiative, Quad A gaming, everything like that. When talking specifically about the initiative, and really just how Microsoft's going to handle first party exclusives moving forward, what would you personally like to see from a Quad A game by Microsoft? What makes the most sense for them to do out the gate? And when I say out the gate, like within the first 2 to 3 years of this system, at this level on Xbox Series X, what do you think? What would you like to see, and what do you think would be best for them to produce with this kind of talent, with this budget? First and foremost, being budget. If you're throwing Quad A gaming, it's blank check, at least in my opinion. But what kind of experience do you want to see them come out throwing in the first couple years here? Because the game, like we said, it's confirmed the game's in a playable state. At least what they have in mind for this game, the base of this game is in a playable state, and we're getting more information about this relatively soon. I'm guessing at this reveal event for the Xbox Series X or E3 at the latest. What do you think they should put out? What should the initiative put out? What would you like to see them put out that you think is going to say that's the reason you want to buy an Xbox Series X that over a PlayStation, or just in general, what's going to drive people to buy this system in terms of this game that they're working on?
Yeah, I already kind of alluded to it previously, but I definitely am going to double down on it and say that they're going to come at something RPG, some type of gritty RPG experience that's going to definitely rival, whether it be God of War or whatever. They're going to aim at something in particular, and they're going to try to take it down, whether it be a fantasy type world, whether it be a realist type world. Whatever they go for, it's going to be done by some of the biggest guns in gaming, and they're going to do it right, and they're going to try to come out swinging right off the bat. And they're going to give these guys a blank check, and anything's possible. But
anything is possible.
I'm definitely like, if I was a betting man, I would definitely bet on some type of, maybe, like I said, maybe not open world, but like an open world RPG where it's not as time consuming as like a Witcher or things of that nature. It's going to be somewhat streamlined. You're probably looking at like 55 hours without expansions. And you're going to be experiencing something that's cinematically beautiful, and it's going to be storyline driven.
It's going to be a girthy
sprinkled through. And it's going to be and it's going to have a ton of gameplay focus because all the guys that are working on it are very good at that aspect too. It's just like there's so many possibilities with this, but that's definitely what I would be looking for from this team right out of the gates.
Yeah, I definitely think we're going to get, and like I keep saying, one of the top things that I think of when I think of quad gaming, one is, like I said, blank check, but two is immersion. And what usually comes with immersion, world building, and what usually comes from what do you see the most world building in? It's an RPG. You see the most immersive experiences usually have RPG elements at least. I think that's what we're going to see, especially with the RPG genre being so consumer friendly and mass populace friendly now, more than it's ever been. I mean, you look at Skyrim, comparative to previous Elder Scrolls games, or even, games like The Outer Worlds, which is one of the most friendly RPGs in the world, but also leans very much into a traditional old school PC RPG experience at the same time with its writing and its approach to that. I think, like, I totally can see this being an RPG. What I'd want kind of goes back to, though, at the same time, I think them providing this cinematic, it leans into the vibes you get from a God of War, from an Uncharted, from a Last of Us, this emotional, really heartfelt experience that you're going to get out of this from a narrative perspective, but also at the same time, I think it just keeps falling back to this immersion level of this world building and this, like you said, everything is purposeful, and everything within that RPG feeling you're going to get makes you want to invest your time in it. And I think that's what the best high level, AAA, whatever you want to call it at this point, whatever is available at this time. You look at all the games that are successful, like what I was just talking about earlier in the show, The Witcher. Like, what's successful about that game is the world that's built within there, the people, the environment, everything about it really makes me want to invest my time in it because it's purposeful. Everything within that is purposeful. So I want to see them come out swinging with this experience that's Xbox hasn't really seen exclusively before. We haven't seen a God of War. We haven't seen an Uncharted, The Last of Us, this level of game that rivals and fucking, I'll be quite honest, in my opinion, blows fucking Hollywood out of the water for the most part with its, presentation and the way it tells its stories. So to me, I think it's going to combat that level, but I think it's going to be on a little bit bigger of a scale. I think it's going to be it's going to be a game that really has the hooks of an RPG, but isn't as abrasive or as time-consuming to an extent as an RPG in terms of, if you want to get 100 hours out of it, sure, you can get 100 hours, but you could also play the game and beat it in 30 hours. There's right. 70 hours of content that's there. If you really want to get after it, great. You could spend a fourth of that time and get everything you want out of it and still feel completely satisfied. I think there's so many examples of that now. You think Red Dead, you could play the main storyline of that and get a compelling story out of that, and you're only doing a fourth of what's going on. Same with The Witcher. Cyberpunk, I'm sure, is going to be like that. Spider-Man, there's a ton of like side quests and shit like that you could do, and you're not even scratching the surface. But I don't think it's going to be as linear as in Uncharted, The Last of Us, a Naughty Dog experience that is praised for its story, but that's the main thing you're leading into. It's the set pieces, it's the narrative that you're getting, but it's not the game world and the gameplay, because the last thing people really like about the first Last of Us was its gameplay. Gameplay wasn't very fun. You play that for the compelling narrative that you get in the world building and the immersion that you feel from that narrative and the environmental storytelling it has. So I don't know. All I'm saying is this is the biggest mystery to me that I don't think we're going to see come out. This is when we think of, I think the old Microsoft adage of, we're going to be we know what we are in terms of we have the most power and this and that. Yeah, that's going to be there. But I really think with what Phil Spencer's been able to do with this brand of Xbox being the place that they want to have gamers play, they know what has won this past generation, and it's been the games. And I don't think we're going to see the level that we've seen from them in this past generation of their exclusives, the recores, the crackdowns. They may still be there, but I think they know what has moved consoles, and it's been the level of polish that they've seen out of what's as close to quad A gaming as we've seen, and it's been mostly on the Blue brand side. So I think we're going to see more of a mix between a heavy narrative focus like a Naughty Dog, but also the expansiveness. Maybe not as much, but as close as you can get, just not as deep to like a Witcher or an Elder Scrolls or something like that. So
right.
I don't know. All I know is Microsoft has Scrooge McDuck money, and they're bringing the right people on. They're building the Avengers-esque, Justice League level team of developers. So, but hey, the Yankees have the deepest pocketbook in baseball, and they could sign whoever they want. They don't win the World Series every year. So Microsoft just has to hire the right people, not the best people all the time. So I don't know. All I know is I'm ridiculously excited to see what comes out of this. And that's the first time I could say that about a new Microsoft studio in a long time. And it's exciting. It's just we're really now in what looks to be possibly one of the best years in gaming period ever. So I'm just ready to get it started. Fucking feed me games. Bring me games. Bring me Solo. Bring me everything you can with this generation. I'm ready for it. So, Mike, I think that's going to do it for our episode, man. Why don't you tell people where they can find you to talk about everything revolving 2020 gaming and, Quad A gaming and everything Xbox Series X initiative, whatever. Where can they find you to talk about all them video games at?
Yeah, they can find me at TOYSXLDIER on Twitter. You can find me on Twitch at MP_ToySoldier. And hit me up, talk to me about them video games.
Absolutely. And you could also find Adam over on there. I'll pimp his stuff. He ain't here, but I'll pimp his stuff. I got your back. You can find Adam over on Twitter at AC_Marshy. That's AC_MARSHY. Find him over there on the Bluebird that talks. And as always, I'm your host, Travis White, aka Travelus, on most internet platforms, including Twitter at Travelus_. That's TRAVLESS_. You can also find me streaming time to time on twitch.tv/Travelus_, same as Twitter. And you can also play some video games with me over on Xbox Live at Regular Travelus. That's just TRAVLESS. And ladies and gentlemen, that has been your newest episode of the Game Pass Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox and Xbox Game Pass, including news, rumors, and conversations around them damn good video games. New episodes of the show drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So be sure to subscribe to us wherever you get those, and follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show, video games, and all of our dope giveaways, like our free game giveaway that we're doing. So, I guess. Just you, Mike. Just me and you. So, Mike, that's going to do it for our show. Thank you, everyone, so much for listening, sharing, and being a part of this growing community. Game on and play them fucking video games, and we will see you next week.